Hey, Greg.
Yeah. Hey, hello. How's it
So
going?
how do you properly pronounce your name? Is it differently than Craig or Kresk? Or
Yeah, so if you're not Polish, just pronounce it Greg.
I know
Yeah, I mean, if you are Polish, it's Grzegorz.
Gregos. Okay.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, I used to do gymnastics, so I had my leotards done in Poland, and I knew a lot of Polish people back then, and like other Eastern European for the rhythmic gymnastics. It's popular in Poland. You know that.
Hi everyone. Hello.
Hello. Luca, you ready for next week? You're not allowed to bail out, so he needs to party all night with me.
The next morning, since they got me to work at the booth all day, so I don't know.
Who cares? Who cares? And Vegas gonna sleep like 1 hour, 2 hours. That's it.
I remind you that this call should be recorded. And the CNCF what the CNCF
Yep.
policy applies. Yep.
Hi all. Hello.
I know that Federico and Jason will not join. I don't know about others. Perhaps even Zook should not join.
So yeah, anyways, it will be fun to go there representing Falco next week, even with security with the hacker crowd in Black Hat, DEFCON, and besides.
It's also actually Marlo from Tech Environmental Sustainability. She's also going to be there.
Oh, nice.
We can meet her and I think some other people. So it should be good networking.
Let's wait a few minutes, I guess, to see if someone else will join.
Probably that's it, range. No. Hey, Maro.
Hey, sorry, late.
Hey, all.
By the way, who want to MC? Okay, I can do. Just if someone else can share the screen, it would be preferable. Maybe Luca. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just checking my calendar. Basically, Jason declined, Michele declined, Thomas declined, and Carlos did not reply. Federico is not coming. I don't know about Mark. Okay, I believe we can start. So, okay, the first point in the agenda is publishing rules 2.x for the next Falco release. And the question is, should we publish 3 different flowers? That means basically having 3 different files. I'm personally in favor of this. What do you think, Melissa, Luca?
And does that involve keeping that file and just publishing 3 files, or?
Yeah, so I think the question that we should discuss it's whether we want now. So first of all, background. Thanks to a lot of great work from Melissa, we have tags into our rules that say the level of maturity that they have. So this is awesome. The question is, since this is a breaking change and we will need to publish this in Falco 036, we just need to decide if we want to get only one single file and keep one single file, or if we want to actually publish 3 files where the default file will be the stable one and the others will be optional. If anything, if there's anything more to discuss on that.
Basically, I copied the pieces from the proposal where we talking about this. I guess we are going to discuss if we want to do this now or in a future release. I would be in favor to do this in this release if we think that we have enough time. The only thing is that we should start advertising users about that, maybe just writing in the mailing list and the Slack channel. What do you think?
I agree on both things actually, because since this is going to be a 2.x release, which has a lot of changes, let's put all the changes that we have planned in the document, in the proposal documents in, so we're good to go, and we don't have to make 2 breaking changes in a row, and we just go with one. Let's target this, and we do need to communicate this somehow.
Okay, so there, I agree. It's better to have 1 breaking change than 2 releases. That makes people even more upset. Can we make improvements to Falco CTL and Falco even beyond what we have planned to make it easier for adopters to deal with that new situation? Because some adopters, they either cannot or don't want to create their own Falco YAML file. Like, for example, I just loop through all the items and create my own version. And for me, it doesn't matter if I have to loop through 3 files or 4 files. It's just, you know, 1 more loop.
Yeah, I think Falco CTL already has the features to enable extra files if you need them. So if you use like Falco CTL, you should be pretty much good to go. Of course, it's always nice to document things. So we have documented a bunch of things, and we can be even clearer if we need, like, how do I enable this and the second file, and here's exactly what you should be doing to enable the second file. But and if you're doing something custom, you're already doing something custom. So as you said, there's not a lot that changes in your workflow. I think that's it.
Okay, well, I can give an update on there's, you know, a couple of PRs open on the Falco side that makes appending to the rules easier and also allows for partial overrides. Basically, that means people can really, in their custom rules file, reference that rule and more easily. It was a request of like 3 or 4 people. I think we can do that. Another one, I am unclear right now. How are we going to do it with enabling tags? So we need to extend the tags feature in Falco. If I enable all maturity stable and all maturity incubating with the tags filter, does that mean I overwrite the enabled true or false? Or does enable true or false is the final say? So for example, if you want to adopt all the incubating rules that we will disable by default, it means you have to add an append option for each of them, specifically enabling them.
If I can reply, the current tag enabling feature allow you to define multiple tags. So you can already enable multiple tags. Maybe the only issue is that this is currently supported only on the command line, and may we want to add this also to the Falco file.
And how about the precedence? I actually don't know right now if I have a rule maturity incubating and I include that in the tags, but that rule is enabled false. What does Falco do?
I believe that the dash T option should override that option, because it's like enabling a couple of rules. Regarding the order precedent, basically the only thing that is matter is the order in which file are loaded by Falco, and this can be configured in the Falco YAML. So basically one could just set the stable one at the first place, the incubating one at the second place, and the sandbox one at the bottom, or vice versa. And then just use -t in the command line to enable the set that they want.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about the ordering. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
there is an alternative things that is, since we are not going to ship by default the incubating one and the sandbox one, we can leave rules enabled by default in those files, because they will not be included by default. And basically, the only thing that the user will have to do is just to add the file if they want that specific set included, loaded in Falco. Does this make sense? I believe it's simpler, basically.
Yep.
So in the end, what a user will get is the Falco rule set by default, and if they want another rule files, just add it, and that's it.
Okay.
Anyway, we can see technical style offline, but I believe we generally agree that this is the way to go.
So Leo, just to summarize, do you think there are missing features that we need in Falco right now, or do we already have everything?
I mean, I think that what we have right now is enough. Maybe we can add in the future another feature to make it more simpler. But I believe we have to think a bit about that. It's not so simple, because it's a user experience problem. Just to summarize, basically, whatever we want to do, it should be already possible. Okay. I think the current situation is acceptable, but we have to check it, of course.
I think the one item is there needs to be one PR to expose the tag filtering over falco.yaml. If you could write that down, Luca. And we should allow both positive and negative.
I think that's the only one that we miss. Thanks.
Yep. I'm not sure Jason mentioned some sort of bug, but was it just enabling, disabling? Anyhow, but we need to check and add more unit tests to show the behavior of, hey, if you enable, it overrides the enabled false feature, just so we have all the tests in place.
Yeah, but I believe that thing is related only when you override some rules. In this case, we are not going to override the rules. I mean, each rules will be defined just one time. So,
no, but like if a user decides to add the stable and the incubating file, but then in the custom rule files he or she disables 2 rules, that should, and then maybe they have the sandbox file too, and they only want to use the tags filter, but they still want to have those 2 rules disabled from incubating. So there needs to be a little bit of more controlled.
I got it. Yeah, makes sense. We have to check it.
Yeah.
Do we have an issue already on this?
I don't know. There's so many issues. Maybe we just create a new one just in case, even if it's a little duplicative. I mean, I would personally prefer to have the tags enabling is great, but the enabled false should be the final say. Okay. We don't have an issue there. We just need to
add issue and get this in before 0.36.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we can go to the next point. Luca?
Yeah. So we have been discussing about Falco images, and this is a potential breaking change. So still, I think, to discuss. And we've thought about them. So what's the problem? We have two potential improvements to the Falco images. One is the infamous driver loader image, and the other is the minimal image. Regarding the driver loader image, a lot of users have come, well, we have had issues opened due to the fact that the current driver loader image is rather old. It means that it was designed for kernels that span from very old ones, such as I think they go back to 2 point something or 3 point something. And the support in that image, given that it's an old version of Debian, stops at kernel 5 point something, I think 4, and it cannot process 5. Now, given the fact that we all know that creating an image that can build kernels for everything is technically possible but not practical, I would propose to simply upgrade the image, that instead of supporting old kernels, it will support something a bit newer, and maybe replacing it with the image that we use in driver kit for kernels that are newer. Probably we still won't be able to build for every possible bleeding edge thing, but it moves the default supportability of Falco from the very old versions to somewhat more modern ones. So I guess kernel 4 and 5 roughly will be supported by the default image, and still distribute the older one in case someone has older kernel versions and want to build. Meaning at the end, you'll have a new Falco driver loader, which does the same that does today, but has a newer version of the base operating system and GCC is installed. And optionally, you can use the legacy one if you want.
Luca, this is great. Could we, Amazon, they do now versioning by year for Amazon Linux. Could we maybe do the same one, just so I don't know, Falco driver loader 2023. So basically every year we can publish a new one or equivalent solution.
That's an interesting point, but I don't know how that would work. Like every year we make a new version, but then the user will need to select one. I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, because images are basically directly bound to the range of GCC supported compilers, and those can span multiple years. So maybe we can have different set, but I'm not sure the year is the key. Maybe we can find a new way to do that.
The different tag?
Yeah, or different tag, yeah.
I think we can go from, I think for now, I kind of like the idea of just upgrading, but we can probably think about what we want to do moving forward, because we'll keep having this problem continuously. So that's a good point. That's a fair point, I think.
Question: do we already know the minimum GCC version supported by the updated image?
I don't remember right now, but I opened a couple issues on that, and I believe that's going to be probably something like GCC 8 to, it's like it kind of follows driver kit, so it's probably going to be GCC 8 to 11 or something like that, 8 to 12.
Yeah, because from that we may infer the kernel version supported. So we could say, if you have this kernel, use the legacy one. If you have this other, you can use the latest image or something like that.
Yeah, it's like driver kit does. It will never work for everything. We can simply we can tag them separately. But anyways,
okay. Anyway, I'm not against this, but it needs a bit of testing.
yeah.
The only point is this. This basically will be a sort of breaking change for users that are using very old kernels. So at least we have to inform that them and say, if you want to continue to use your very, very, very old kernel, you should use the legacy one, and that's it. I believe this should be fair.
Yeah, I am still in favor of updating the default one, because the default one is what most users use, and since a lot of people have complained, it probably means that we're moving towards these newer distributions rather than the old one.
Just to add one thing, the issue with the tag is that for example in the Helm chart, if we use a different image, we can switch the image name. On the other hand, if we use the tag, the user will have to manually modify the tag. That in the Helm chart is by default bound to the latest Falco version, basically. So I like the idea, but we should check the user experience and before deciding how to do that.
Yeah. So how do we move forward? We open a PR and we merge it and we see how it works, and we revert it in case it doesn't, or anything different.
Who will implement this?
I think I can do it.
We can discuss this directly on the pull request if you're ready.
Okay.
Because once the pull request is ready, everything will be clear. I mean, we will see how to use it, and if there are any issue, carizze, something like that.
All right. I think that makes sense. And then we have a Falco, and then we have another thing. And in this case, my proposal is the opposite. So we had ChainGuard, people from ChainGuard that has suggested to use try Wolfie, which is basically a custom Alpine sort of custom Alpine based image for the slim version of the Falco image. Note that it's not regular Alpine, so it's a flavor that does have glibc, and Falco does load in this image. So it's very minimal, it's smaller than the Debian slim one that we use. And I think it's interesting and it should be tested. However, I don't feel confident enough to replace our slim image like Falco no driver image with the Wolfie one. So we discussed this also with Max, who is present, and we probably want to add the Wolfie one in experimental mode. So people will have this image available, and they will be able to play with it, especially if they want to, reduce the number of potential vulnerabilities in their systems or whatever, and play with it. But we don't break experience in case this has bad effects on regular Falco usage. I think that's reasonable. Any comment on this? Okay. Next item on the agenda is still for me, and it's something that I've discussed with Max last week, I believe, that so basically, if you know, right now we have support for signing plugins and rules automatically in our CI with cosign. This is pretty cool, but we don't have signatures for the plugins that have been released up to this point. So we are going to need to release new versions of plugins and rules, and we are going to need to make a patch version, even if nothing has changed. Now, question is, we can either do it kind of now or by just releasing a new patch release that doesn't have anything new, but will have the signature added, or wait until we are about to release 0.36, in which we are probably going to re-release all the plugins either way, and so do it then. What are your thoughts about this? And do you think we should? What do you think we should do? And what do you think we should plan for?
How much effort will it be to create the patch and re-sign everything and re-release?
Yeah, I think it's a similar effort to what we do before each release, so it might not be worth it. As you can see, usually this happens because we have to go through all the plugins and take a look if any modification was done, and put the tag exactly where the previous tag was, or move it if necessary. So we have to double tag every plugin and every rule in case, so that this is resigned. But however, since we're kind of close to the 036, we might, and I don't actually, this one is probably a question for people that usually publish plugins. Do you think we will need to actually republish all the plugins before 036, or will we leave them as is?
It usually likely to happen. So I would, I mean, I don't have a strong opinion. Both solution can work, but probably doing that close to the release make more sense. We by the way, can we use pre-release versions?
I tried today and the CI failed, so that's something to investigate.
So the point is this: probably some week before the week before the release, we will need to create some pre-release of plugins, and this will be a good chance to test this stuff if it works with pre-releases, of course.
I think we should start early September with this, since the release is the end of September, and we want to have more weeks to fix things in case they fail. So.
Okay, we can target the pre-release of the beginning of September, because in theory we should do a Falco pre-release at the beginning of September, near there.
Okay.
At the end of August, or
end of August.
Yeah, but it will likely be more the beginning of September, I guess. Yeah.
Pre-releases and yeah, so we are aligned with the release. Yeah, that makes sense. Then thanks a lot. I think the next
Yeah. Okay. This point is just a promise. This point is a bit related to a license check I'm doing, since recently in the CNCF world some concern came up about licensing. One of these is related to the licensing of the BPF program and kernel module. I just added a link later down in the agenda, but it's just for your information, so I don't have to talk about that. I just wanted to share with you, and I suggest you to read the discussion. Coming back to third-party dependency, basically the point is this: Avocado is, if I remember correctly, GPL, and UBI has no real license, and the CNCF never replied about licensing. And since we are not actually using these two things anymore, if nobody disagrees, we will just get rid of them. This is my point.
I think that makes sense. For UBI, I'm a bit sad because people from Red Hat were asking to do the Red Hat certification, but we never had a response for like 2 years from CNCF on whether we were allowed to do that or not. And so we were never able to go through with it. So it makes sense to remove them so that nobody has questions, because apparently since that's a problem, it means that the CNCF answer is no, we cannot use Red Hat UBI image. Bit sad, honestly.
Of course, yeah, of course, if someone wants can move that Docker file on its own private repository or personal repository, because it's actually not real licensing issues. It's just something that is not allowed by the CNCF, as far as we know. Okay, the next point I already talked about. Now the next point is moving. Okay, some items to be postponed to the 0.37. Luca, do you have any info about that? Because we talked a bit. I know that basically there is no one working on Falco driver loader deprecation, and this is huge. So we want to move this to basically the next release, not the current one. And regarding the new Kubernetes client, I know there is some progress, but is going a bit slow, and there is nothing public right now. So we probably will not able to ship this for the 0.36. The good news is that this will be probably implemented like a plugin, and in that case it will be decoupled by the specific Falco release. So maybe if we are in time, we may just release this plugin as an experimental thing. Okay. Anyway, the point is just we should move this in the roadmap from 0.36 to 0.37, just to set the correct expectation to our adopters.
Leo, I'm a little confused. So we're publishing a new Falco driver loader just to deprecate it?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So you don't know what the issue is here.
Basically, there is a proposal that was already accepted to rewrite the Falco driver loader script that is currently in Bash.
Okay, so it's just about rolling the script.
Yeah, see. And basically the proposal say we should implement it in Falco Cattle using Golang. That makes a lot more sense than Bash file. I just want to link the proposal so anyone is aware about that. Let me find it. Okay. Basically, the point is this was already approved, but we don't have enough time right now to implement it.
Okay.
Yep. That's true. The thing is, I was thinking about the fact that we want to keep the month of September for pretty much testing, mostly testing and fixing all this CI, CD, and all the stuff that we have discussed, and getting in bug fixes and this sort of things. And in the month of August, we know that most of the engineers that are actively working on the project will either have some vacation or will be on all the time on vacation. So if it was a normal period of time, it would be nice. We could do it. But at this time, we do need to be more conservative regarding what we can ship.
And then, in any case, I really believe that implementing such feature in Falco Cattle would require more than 1 month. So it's something that we probably should start at the beginning of the next release cycle.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. If there are no questions, we can go with the other 2 points from Melissa.
Okay, yeah, so the first time, what I mean with Falco rules modernization, I don't think, we're not 10 years back where Kubernetes didn't exist, where certain attacks were prevalent. So right now it's more attackers go after the control plane and they exfiltrate certain stuff, but over the control plane. So I think Falco really is well positioned since we support K8's audit logs. So what needs to happen is to re-audit the current syscalls and container rules to make stronger ties between those 2 data sources, and basically potentially also add new rules. So kind of like, hey, if you do credential liftings, not after you get a traditional reverse shell, but you have, I don't know, stolen service account credentials and you just make regular requests, how does it look different in the data? Or maybe we can have a rule that's a little bit more noisy and give the recommendation that if you correlate this with Kubernetes audit logs and have certain rules there that, I don't know, highlight the anomaly a little bit better, you can basically join it with that data set. I don't know, I probably didn't explain it well, but I'm currently anyways working with red teamers a lot, and we're going to do a re-audit. and see where certain gaps are, because I think the current rules, they don't reflect what's actually going on, and we could do better. I don't know, Luca, do you have any random thoughts? Just, I mean, we're so well positioned to give people recommendation to, hey, we actually feature K8's audit plugin, you can use it, or if you have your own custom ways of getting the data, you can still follow our recommendations to join these different rules and make these data correlations.
So are you suggesting that we can suggest what people could correlate? Because sadly, plugins and syscalls don't correlate right now, especially like two events don't correlate. And that's
Sure, but
kind of the problem. Like, I think this is a bit of research regarding Falco. I think something could be done by playing with the plugin, like by looking at the plugin, having the plugin inspect the system call stream and seeing if it's possible to have some events coming from the Kubernetes audit log that can create a tiny bit of state in the plugin, just the bare minimum state to add information to the event. But this is a bit of a research task, because I think it would be cool, but it's a bit of a research task, because also right now I don't think it's possible to create a plugin that you can ship that does this, because the Kubernetes plugin, if I remember correctly, it's written in Go. And the new APIs do not support yet the high efficiency required to parse the entire statistical stream in Go. So this is a big hurdle for that, but it would be cool. I think some plugins could benefit from a tiny bit of state that they create out of the syscall without actually touching the SINSP state and all this stuff.
yeah, that's amazing, and that's like a couple of years out. And also there's the complication that you probably only want to train or subscribe to the K8 audit logs on the control node, versus with the syscalls you mainly inspect on the worker node. So there probably needs to be a little bit more communication back and forth, and that's going to be a deployment nightmare and recommendation nightmare. Anyhow, so I was thinking more about the recommendations. People do this today. They ship off Falco logs, they ship off Kubernetes audit logs into their own custom CM or data lakes. I was talking more about correlations there as a first step. To one example is the terminal shell and container. The recommendation is when that triggers in Falco, it doesn't mean it always was kubectl exec into the container. You know, there could also be other conditions. But if you then go and look into the Kubernetes audit logs, you can do an inner join based on the namespace and pod name, because unfortunately Kubernetes audit logs, they do not know the container ID. And that way you can find the actual user or service account token that was used to exec into, and that gives you a lot of incident response capabilities. Actually, that's kind of required in IR.
I don't know if they even give you the Kubernetes audit give you even the PID of the process that has run.
It's such a sad reality, and also the source IPs that the audit logs log if you have reverse proxies in between those source IPs. So frankly, I don't know. I'm just thinking.
But the user is interesting. Like I would at least want to know the user that did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how would you propose that the recommendations look like?
Yeah, so as bullet points, you can write down, I will work with some red teamers and we will go through some scenarios, rules, and then I have to see what I can recommend upstream. I will do that. And I guess, Lucas, I talked to you, we do it open source, so everyone can chime in. And the practical outcome could be that we add more recommendations to current rules, how to potentially correlate with Kubernetes audit logs, similarly to how we do it with the terminal shell and container. And or we add even a couple of new rules that obviously need to go through a new process of sandbox.
Yeah. You say like falco.org/docs, like next to the pages that you wrote and that we collectively have for rules, plus rules.
The description and the rules, I think. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, open to however, but I just feel people look at the rule and they probably want to have all the information description, not a thesis, but you know, 4 or 5 sentences, a paragraph is good.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks for this idea.
Yeah, and I think with that, Falco can really stand out to be more modern, more integrated into what's actually going on, because everyone thinks, oh, it's just malware, it's these fancy things. The reality is most of the time you don't have to be that fancy. It's all about you steal credentials at one place, other place, and then you misuse it. And there's also a lot of, you know, tunneling going on. So the reality looks a little bit different than just that. But luckily we do have all the other rules. So, you know, we're not going to get rid of this. It's just being more modern, more up to date, what's going on.
Anyway, if I can just add that also on top, regarding the Kubernetes log, we should also better explain how to deploy this object, because in our experience, the most convenient way to do that is that you deploy Falco for syscall as a daemon set, and as a separate object, you deploy just the plugin. I mean, one replica or two replica, I don't know.
Yep.
And perhaps you use something like Falco Sidekick to merge all this information if you need, or whatever else you need. This is something that I believe we have to explain better at some point in the documentation.
So the other recommendation is for the official one is deploy the plugins only on the control node.
For example,
Deploy Falco syscalls container, those rules on as a daemon set. On the keynotes.
I talked a lot of time with Max in the past about this stuff. Max, do you remember?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Docs on website with respect to deployment of plugins versus set slash start. Okay. Anyone, any more questions in this regard or ideas? Or concerns, kind of, we should not be doing it. Okay, I take this as like everyone agrees that the stronger ties between control plane data and syscalls rules make sense. Okay, next item, try improving the container engine. So there are adopters who are still complaining about null image fields, and I myself observe it too, and it appears not to be just a race condition, as in the event happened close to the start of the container. It basically has been observed anywhere in its lifetime, so that means maybe if we, I don't know, Perez, you're more knowledgeable about the container engine, but could we add more backup lookups that if we don't fetch it, we kind of like have some like we do every 30 seconds, we do flushing of the containers in case they exited. Can we do something else to at least improve it so that for every event that happened in a container, we do have the image field not null, unless there's really the race condition that happened so close at the beginning that we cannot do anything about it. Big question mark. I have to dive deeper into it, but it's just so important for incident response and for data analysis to have that data enrichment.
Question: do we have a way to reproduce this issue already?
So there was just a recent issue, I think Caroline was her name, and since we now have the fields container duration,
because
she just responded back. Wait, let me check what the name was of the ticket. NA and null fields despite dash disable async. I can send that. Yep.
okay, because I guess this does not happen all the times, but just under some circumstance, and we have to understand why.
Yep. And I mean, I can also help with doing some analysis in an anonymized way, because I also noticed there's a certain percentage of where I always see null fields over time. It kind of tends to increase a little bit, but I also have to dive deeper into understanding, is it only close to container start time? Is it randomly anywhere? Do we even have weird occasions where we had the image and then we lost it along the way? So basically the same container ID that has it or doesn't have it. You know, all these different scenarios, we just have to get to the bottom of what could be going on in order to determine if we can do something about it. I don't know, I just wanted to highlight this, that this is, I don't know, 10 out of 10 in terms of how important this is to be able to use Falco effectively.
Yeah, I agree. In general, all this kind of bug should be tentatively targeted for the current release. So it's worth to investigate, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty concerning to me, because apart from the race condition, which I think is very hard to remove because container engines don't report immediately what's happening. So you either do something very crazy, or you don't have that information until the engine tells you. But out of that, once you have it, you should keep having it. It's weird that we lose it.
Or we never fetched it, and we didn't have like backup fetches that, you know, it's okay to have it not for 1 minute of events when the container started. But if I never have the image because I didn't fetch it at the beginning, that's also not good. Because sometimes, you know, containers, they run for 30, 40 days.
Yeah, well, no, the question is, why didn't we fetch this? And can another fetch succeed?
Yep, I would like to get to the bottom. So maybe, Craig, I can work with you to come up with a game plan. I probably would first start with diving into my data to see something.
We can give it a try, but unfortunately, I don't believe we can find one solution for everything. It's going to be like, you know, like finding a cure for cancer. There's so many different cancers and so many things that can go wrong while detecting this. Because this is effectively us chasing a moving target. You know, every new container runtime, every new version of a container runtime can introduce some incompatibilities, or even the same version running in a different environment uses a different C group layout or anything. So this is us really chasing a moving target.
Leo.
Sorry, I maybe solved the issue, because the first event happened in the host, not in a container.
Yeah, but the second one, she was referring to the second one. That was in a container. Yeah.
What is missing in the second? Just
so we have the C group here. The container ID was populated BA1F, and the image was null. And I can confirm I observed this myself, certain percentage. And to Craig's point, maybe we just have to cut our losses and try to get it to work the best possible for container D. That seems to be the most popular, commonly used. I don't see cryo even.
Okay. The point is that other information fetched from the container runtime are available in that event. You can notice cates.namespace and cates.pod.
Yep. So basically it means we have the C group that worked, but we just didn't get any.
Okay, we don't get any other information.
The API call didn't work, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question is, why didn't it work? Because if the runtime is telling us no such container, then it might be a cryo bug, for example. I mean, we know there's a bug in cryo that's not going to give you the container details for the first, I think, like half a second while the container exists.
Oh, really?
It's just to tell you no such container. Yeah. So we are retrying for the first second or so until cryo tells us, yes, here's the container that has already started a second ago. But again, this is a workaround for a specific bug in a specific container runtime. And
how about container D? Is there any existing bug or?
I don't know really, but they share a lot of the code, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's also broken in some similar way. but we apply the same workaround for all cry containers. So basically, cryo and container D are the same thing as far as we are concerned.
Yeah.
So that specific workaround also is applied to container D if needed. So it's probably going to be yet another workaround in the container engines. And
once if you find something, we can totally bubble it up to the container D maintainers. If there's something that needs to be fixed there, it's not like we cannot reach out to them and at least ask them to going forward.
Yes, this has been a dilemma for most of my career, because I've been working with third-party code basically forever, and I can, of course, I can report the issue, I can help it get fixed upstream, but this doesn't really solve my problem, because I have a fleet of thousands and thousands of different nodes that are going to run old versions of whatever, and even if it gets fixed now, then by the time it filters down to all the distributions, to the updates, to all the enterprise distributions in particular, it's gonna be years. So yes, reporting things to upstreams is definitely nice, but honestly, it's not really a solution to anything.
Yeah, I know. That's why I can never have nice things.
Yes.
But anyhow, at least do we agree that we can at least try to look into it and see? I mean, I don't want to force it into 0.36, given Luca pointed out a lot of vacations. I myself will be out in September, but at least so we keep posting on the issue that, hey, we're investigating, we're working on it. It's not that easy because of those reasons, but at least, we're kind of on it.
Yeah, but I'm not really sure. I mean, I got your comments about cleaning up or refactoring the container stuff, but I mean, it may help with some things, but I don't think it's going to help with issues like this.
Yep.
Because it's still asynchronous, and it's still a collection of workarounds. So whatever we do, it's not our fault that this code is a mess. It's because the real world is a mess and we have to handle it.
Yep. I like that. It's a collection of workarounds that, that's very accurate. Anyhow, so I just wanted to bring that up to just, I don't know, see if we can do something about it, since it's so important, or at the very least, to the point what Craig says, we have recommendations of it cannot work because of those reasons, to just set expectations. And I think I published this one page on the website about Falco performance in production, and also with these null fields. And because we do these correlations across events, it can just never be perfect. So I actually wrote that one sentence that, and if people have ideas or encounter such issues, they can, reach out and contribute, just to, kind of have a little bit more, let's help each other instead of people just calling out it's not working. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for this sort of issue, I think the only way is to collect some debug logs and see where things go wrong. Because I think that the container code is one place where we actually have fairly decent logs. So they should be helpful in tracking down why we're not getting the data.
Would we expose these like debug logs for example, my preference in production is to have these Falco metrics snapshots. Could we kind of channel some metrics into those? Because for me, it's hard to get on a real production server where there's a lot of issues to run it in debug mode or it's a lot of stuff involved. And typically on a development server and QA server, you don't get to these conditions. So it would be nicer to have the metrics or data we need without needing to run it in debug mode, just sort of regular reporting.
I mean, well, when the regular mode becomes debug mode, because the whole point of those debug logs is that they are verbose, and they are probably more verbose than what you'd want to run in production. But one thing that could, I think that it would make sense, but it's also going to be considerable effort, is that we have different categories for logs. so that we debug the container engines, but we log everything else in at the warning or error level. So then if you're working on a container problem, then just crank up the container logs to max and ignore the rest. But that's going to take time because first we need the tooling to do this, and then we need to actually update the code so that the logs are put into separate categories.
I know we're talking about Christmas.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure which year.
Yes, but exactly.
Yep. Anyhow, maybe, I don't know, Leo, we have 5 minutes left. The other thing is with the Falco outputs, there seems to be something leaking in production.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because of that outbounded output queue. It's the first best guess. So we're gonna just add that configuration, offer to then deploy with some sort of limits on the output queue and see if there's something else still leaking. It's just something under certain conditions. I'm talking about P95 or above,
Yeah,
is leaking.
yeah. As I said to you privately, I agree to implement this feature because it makes sense to have a bounded queue.
Yep.
But I bet it will not solve the memory leak. We will see.
At this point, I don't know, but
Any-
something is
In
up.
any case, yeah. In any case, if even this will not solve the issue, it worth to still investigate because those kind of bugs must be prioritized, in my opinion. So I will try to help. I don't
Yeah.
have much time, but I try to help.
But just to give you kind of like, guys, like an idea, it was really a Friday. Like these people posted on the public channel, and then an SRE on that Friday also reached out to me. It's kind of like, hey, your stuff is leaking. And I was like, great. Yeah. So I think 4 or 5 people kind of reported these type of issues.
Perhaps I hope the end of August will be a quiet period, and maybe I will have some time to help with code.
Mhm.
Because right now I'm just helping with other stuff, not just with code. Anyway, feel free, at least for me, feel free to put those fixes in the roadmap. I mean, if they are important fixes, they need to be worked on. Any other question, thoughts?
Good. And we would be right on time.
Just want to let Melissa finish it right.
Oh yeah, I can do it after we drop off the one sentence. Don't worry.
So we are done. Thank you to everyone. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Thank you.